No barefoot and dreams of CNC alive. Totally colors swirling down, let freedom be my guide. Epoxy rivers flowing free across the flag so wide. In a workshop for the brick where art and life collide. Stars and stripes, they come alive beneath my hopeful hands. Grinding down the...
Well, hello, folks. I hope you're all doing well. And we've got Shane here. And today is kind of special because we got Shane. You guys have been wanting to ask him questions for quite a while now. And so that's what we will start with. We will start with Shane answering questions about how you actually do skin tones on your epoxy and how he approaches that. And then from there, we'll take open questions. And if there's any AI information or anything that you want to cover, I've got a presentation on AI, but I want to not take up your time on that if you want to be talking to Shane. So with that, Shane just turned off his phone, so go look at the comment. I'm here and see what we got going on here. Trying to find the comments on this screen here. My comments tab disappeared. There we go. All right. It looks like we got quite a crowd out there. Let's see here. Do I have any questions right off the bat as I stall for time for Shane to come back? He was here just a second ago. And let's see here. My viewer, Brooks. Hey, Brooks, Michael. Bunch of comments here. Dave Kraus, Crafty Jans, Kurt, Dave Kraus again. So it looks like there's a whole lot of discussion in here about all the stuff that's been on the Facebook Messenger group talking about how you go about doing laser engraves with a 3D look. So I noticed that's been a hot topic there. Hi, Steve. Joe, hello, everybody. All right, so Shane's back now. So we'll see. The first topic that we wanted to talk about was, Shane, the big question that people wanted to know is, how do you go about approaching skin tones with your epoxy inlays? Because we've noticed several different types. And you talked about this probably a year or 2 years ago, a little bit, but a lot of these people weren't following us back then and didn't have to hear what you said. And maybe you've come up with some new things. So how do you go about approaching skin tones?
Hey, Rob, real quick, the music is blaring every time you stop talking.
What music?
I can still hear your song.
Well, then I better figure out how to turn that off because it's not supposed to be on. Hold on. I have no idea why it's on. So
I don't know. Does anyone else hear that?
Can you hear it now?
No, it just went away.
Okay.
Okay, good. They don't hear it either. So it must have been something in for, oh, see, he's not hearing any music. It must have been something just for us as a host or something.
Yeah, I couldn't hear it either.
Okay, yeah, perfect. It's all gone now. Whatever you did worked.
Okay.
Okay, what was the question? Let's see. About the
so the question is, how do you go about approaching skin tones, Shane?
So I'm almost always starting with like
projects?
I almost always start with like a white base. So like the number 25 mix-all in some epoxy. Not a real heavy dose of it, but just enough to go from not having a clear anymore. And then if I'm doing like a white person or a Caucasian person, then I'm going to hit it with like a little bit of orange and yellow, or a little bit of red and orange, depending on who the characters I'm doing. If it's some like, you know, redneck hillbilly, normally those guys are a little bit darker than like darker red than some of the other ones I did. Like I don't know if you saw the Viking that I just completed.
Yeah.
That was more like of a peach, more of a peach color, and it was real simple. It's just it's you know, like start with a white base and then just add the first thing to do, I think, if you're looking for that color like of the Viking, would just add like a 1 drop of orange and mix it up and just see what you get. And then you don't want to forget that you're going to probably want to add more white to make that like a color that you're not like seeing through. And then I just kind of go drop by drop from there and keep stirring, and I just kind of work by eye. That's one of the things that's really hard for me is yeah, I think I told you this a long time ago, Rob. It's like I can just look at a color and just know what I need to put to kind of get close, or something, you know, that'll get me close, and then I can just dial it in from there by eye. But
Yeah.
you know, as good as I am with colors and things and matching, I'm still just not the guy to tell you like, oh yeah, you know, red and yellow make orange. I mean, we know red and yellow make orange, but I never really approach a color by thinking, oh, I'm going to need this many parts of this and this many parts of this to make that. I just know that, like, oh, okay, to get there, I see what's in it. Like, if I'm doing like a black person or African American, I know I talked about this before on your show. Really, they're orange. They're not black, but they look black and they look brown on the thing. But it's really just a dark burnt orange, is what that color is, that African American color. So, and one thing to do too, guys, one uh, thing that I always do is if I'm looking at a photo of like a logo and I want to get that color, I take a screenshot and I blow it up until I can only see that color, and I take another screenshot. So I basically got a swatch. That's when you really see what color you're truly looking at. It's you know, I don't think any of us even realize most of the time we're looking at colors, we think it's one thing, but really it's, you know, it's not. Like when you look at like the one I did of the Hawaiian family that, you know, she's African American and he's from Hawaii and he's almost like my color, uh, and their kids are darker. There was like no barely any brown added to those at all. It was really just like orange, drop of blue, things like that to kind of get to that color, you know, that darker skin tone that I was looking for. Oh, looks like you got the Viking up there, huh?
Yeah. So I thought I might try to show that, and we'll see how well it works. So,
I'm not sure who B is, but I saw him. He says he's been kicked out twice trying to get human flesh tone. I get it. Like, even when I'm on here, I feel weird talking about it because I don't know if I'm allowed to say a black person, or I'm from Detroit. I should be allowed to say that, but I don't know if I'm allowed, if I have to say African American or a white person or Caucasian. I don't, you know, I'm not too good with all that stuff. Everybody knows that.
okay. I
I just,
understand that fully. So let's show this video. Let's see if we can see it. Now, I don't play the music because then we'll get flagged by YouTube, because you always use music that's copy protected. So, but you see that right there, you see the skin tones Shane was talking about in the Viking board. So, and I don't know if I can blow this. Oh, look at that. I can. I blew it up a little bit. So that's the skin tone you said you started in. How did you say you started that one?
just like mostly white with a drop of orange and a couple drops of yellow.
All right. And so that's that one. Let's go over here. This is another famous one of yours there.
Oh yeah, Steve Van Doren and Paul Van Doren from Vans.
So this is one you did, and we've got several shades of skin in there. How did you approach those?
Yeah, those no orange at all. It was all just red. That darker skin tone actually. There, believe it or not, there's a drop of blue in there, but yeah. So I stayed away from orange for their skin tones because really just because the artwork came to me and those were the tone, that was the colors he had on the artwork. So I just kind of stuck with that and just kind of matched it by eye.
But you started with a base, And that base was
White.
was what? White, you said?
Yep, number 25 white from Mixall.
Okay, and let's see if we can. Here we go.
Yeah, there you go.
It won't let me go backwards, so we'll just have to play through it.
Okay.
So you saw the picture that you were doing up there, that you were working from. So that was a final result. And didn't you say that was kind of hard to match at first because of some
Oh yeah,
peculiarities?
so this is a project that I thankfully messed up at the very last step after about a month and a half of back and forth to the machine. I went to drill the little white spots in their eyes that just show the reflection of light. And I had forgotten that on my CNC, I moved my XY0. I was on a different home. I was on home 9 instead of home 1, which was off about 2 inches to the right and 2 inches up. And I just hit start and walked away. When I came out, it had drilled holes in the project where they weren't supposed to be. So I threw the project on the floor and started over from scratch. Thankfully, that happened because when I printed up that picture from the artist, my printer ink, everything came out real dark. So when I first sent that, when I showed her what had happened, she says to me, Shane, I don't know if you know this, but my husband's kind of like your color, and you have him looking like Biggie Smalls. So I had, the printer just printed him really dark. That would have been the most embarrassing thing ever if I had delivered that project. So I was really upset at the time, but I was super thankful that that happened because then I was able to, based off of her, I had Jorge send me the file again, and I printed it up on a good printer and was able to see what they were supposed to look like. Actually, for the rest of that, you'll even see the iPad in the one of the scenes there when I'm pouring. I actually just went off an iPad from there because I was so scared to print anything. But it's like real close to the beginning. You'll see the iPad right there. You see it like sitting all on the back.
Yeah, I saw it.
I used that the whole rest of that project, and I actually used that for several projects until I got comfortable again printing pictures, just because that mix-up would have just been epic. I am going to go back. I want to put this on my page all the time where I show a side-by-side, but I'm really afraid Tamika is going to think I'm making fun of them somehow or something stupid like that. So that's the only reason I don't make a bigger joke about it and kind of put it out there that cousin Kevin really messed something up there. Because I just don't want someone to take it the wrong way and think I'm trying to make fun of someone's color. That's not what it is. I'd like to make fun of myself, but it's hard to do that without maybe hurting someone's feelings. And in today's day and age, with the way all these sissies are, it's like you gotta not say anything almost because someone's gonna be upset no matter what you do.
So here's another one of yours, Shane, that you did with this more of a fleshy skin tone.
Yep. Drop of orange, some yellow, and then his opposite color, I think neck is
right in here.
You drop the let me see the number. Hold on, because I actually use this number a lot in skin tone. So let me get this for you for Mixel. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. So here's some that I use in skin tones quite a bit. Not very much of it, but
I was telling him, sorry, there was a couple of racy posts, and I stalled on one because I couldn't tell what it was. And
racy. What's racy?
female anatomy exposed?
I don't think there's any naked ladies on my page, is there?
No, it's not naked, but it's close.
Ah, okay. Well, they probably loved it.
Not the females.
Oh,
Anyway, going on, and you know me, what a prude I am, Shane.
I
So,
hear you.
we've talked about how prudish I am. So, anyway, you were going to go with the color again.
Yeah,
I didn't
so
want you distracted by my comment.
like there on the redneck dude right there, this number 4 from Mixol. It's a
Yeah.
real popular one for like doing like that more darker reddish tone. So I still start with a white base. There's still orange going in, a little bit of orange, even though I'm using this as the main color. So it might be like a half a drop of orange and then 3 or 4 drops of the number 4.
And then white. But you start with a white base.
I'm always starting with a white base. Yeah, never.
Even in the real dark skin tones, you start with a white base.
Yes, yeah, and like I said, it doesn't have to be like a, a completely solid white. Like there's so much in there you can't even see through it. But you just want to start with that white base and then tone that white base to whatever you're doing. So if you're doing an African American person, you're going to hit that white base, throw some orange in there, and then you could do some blue or some brown if you want to put a little bit of brown in there. But better than that is if you're doing them is number 21 from Mixol. Maybe a drop of this with some orange, it will get you a little bit darker quicker than it will, the other way. So
as we've talked about this before, Shane, you always start with a white base, and then what you've told me is you just kind of put a couple drops in there of each color until you're looking at it and you get the blend. And is it your experience that the color you see in the cup of the pigment is pretty much going to match what you see in the epoxy?
Really close. I mean, I think they dry a little bit lighter than how it looks in the cup, but only about a shade, so it's not much at all.
Okay. So anybody else have questions for Shane about his epoxy jobs and coloring or other trade secrets, things like that they want to ask of him?
Yeah, anything you guys want to know. I don't have any secrets, so you guys can ask me and I'll tell you exactly what my process is.
Did you have certain things you want to share? Oh, you shared something the other day on your channel.
The scratch coat or the scratch layer.
How you approach like a very thin, a very not a deep color that you have to do a scratch. So do you want to describe that?
Yeah, so like on this project here, the Viking, to get Traeger into that little box, I mean, those letters were, they're only an eighth of an inch, maybe a little bit more than an eighth of an inch high. And the whole width of that thing was about 1.25 inches or something like that. So to scratch that in, it's pointless for you to, let me see, roughly 5 drops of white, 1 orange, 1 red. Yeah, start like that, but be prepared to add more white than that, whoever B is. So because the software, the VCAR, I'm assuming everyone's using VCAR Pro or Aspire, so I'm just kind of speaking on that. But the software kind of knows the width of those letters, like what I have between vectors. And if I tell it to cut 0.15 deep, it's going to ignore me anyhow, and it's going to be just barely scratching in that letter anyhow. And if I'm doing that, I've always found that it's always a little bit off. Even my Z0 on my machine is just like when I do the flattening bit and I Z0 it and I get to 0 and then I take another 0.5 millimeter off, stuff like that. By then, those little scratch coats would be gone. They'd be completely gone because I was just off a little. So I've just found it easier to.
Is this the section you were talking about?
Right there in the face of the dial on the Traeger where it says Traeger. So to do that, like instead of me, trying to put that in, and then when I actually flatten it, I might need to go down an extra 0.5 millimeter or whatever. I'm going to lose it anyhow. So one of the first steps I do now when I'm doing these projects is I went in and I grabbed like the scarring on his uniform, that hashing or the hash tag deal, like it looks like just like some warrior marks. I took
Yep.
those. I took the the Traeger didn't come with the word Traeger didn't come in this design, but I just wrote it in there in the very beginning. I selected that and a lot of the small things like the marks under the eyes and things like that. And I pulled them all out to a new layer and I called it like for last.
These
And
marks over here, these thin lines.
yeah. So I took all that stuff out that I knew, would be like one of the last scratch coats that the scratch layers that I needed to do. I did all the project, flattened the whole thing nice and flat, front and back, and then flipped it back over and re-zeroed. And then I just ran the program to go like a 0.04 or 0.05 deep on all that stuff. And then just hand sand after that. I don't come back with the flattening bit because I'm afraid it'll just take too much and I'll just lose it again.
Yeah. So you surface it first. So you're right at your final thing. Then you do a scratch cut into it, pour the epoxy, but you don't pile it on like you do with the rest of it. You're gentle with it, I'll call it. And then you can just sand it off without making it disappear.
Yep. You just start with 180. And so I flatten it with the flattening bit. I hit it with the sander at 180 to get everything just kind of the same level basically on there. I zero off of that. I cut in the scratch layer about a 0.04 or 0.05 deep, depending on what it's going in there. And then just with a toothpick, I just kind of go around and I just drop that stuff in and kind of flatten it out. And I make sure there's enough so it's not going to leave a little like divot in there when I'm done.
Right.
But just not so much where it takes forever to sand it off because I don't want to come. Well, the only reason is you can put it as heavy as you want and still just go with 180, but you're going to go through 3 or 4 pieces of sandpaper to get down. And I don't want to. I never touch any of the epoxy with anything less than 180 just because it just takes forever to get those swirl marks out. So I start at 180 and then go up from there to into the 4,000, 5,000, and then polish.
Okay. So you said you already answered Brooks, didn't you? So roughly 5 drops white, 1 orange.
B is Brooks. Okay, cool. Hello, Brooks. And I would say hi to all of you, but I have no access to actually type in the chat. So hello to everyone.
Yeah. And he's operating from an iPhone. So
yes.
Also, Kurt Brugel, Crafty Jan's question. He has, what brand epoxy is your preference for shallow pours and for deep pours?
Okay, so Moss is my official epoxy sponsor. So whether I'm doing deep pours, I'll use their deep pour from Moss. But one epoxy, I mean the Moss epoxy, the LV, which is the low viscosity with the medium hardener, is my go-to. I would say 8 times out of 10. And then 1 time out of 10, it's the LV with the fast, and 1 time out of 10, it's the LV with the slow. Just depending really what's going on. If it's my last pour of the night, I might use slow just because it'll give me more time with bubbles or whatever I have to deal with, and I don't have to cut back into it that same day. And I know the slow only needs 12 hours, and then you can cut right back into it. Whereas the medium needs 8 hours, and the fast you need at least 4. So that's just kind of that's what I use as my reasoning for how I pour, but just most of the time the LV with the medium is perfect. Now, just so you guys know, a little trick or a little secret in the epoxy industry, Total Boat also has medium, slow, and fast hardeners, and it's the exact same epoxy. Both those companies just use a third-party label on their, to put their labels on the same stuff. So whether you're getting Total Boat or you're getting the Moss slow, medium, fast, it's the exact same epoxy with a different label on the front. I would say use Moss because they're the ones that who send me the stuff for free every month. So I would go that route.
Yeah.
But just so you know, if you have the Total Boat medium and slow with the low viscosity stuff, it's the exact same thing I'm using.
And I also use I stick with the Moss medium, and then for now, and I never go to the fast. The fast, I just don't trust. I've had too bad of experiences with fast hardeners.
Well, fast is great for pre-coats,
well, yeah,
brushing them in.
Yeah, that would make sense. But I'm talking about hardening. It seems to not harden as evenly in my case. Have you found that true with the hardener in the moss?
No, I've always had pretty good luck with anyone that I've used, but I have had a couple issues with the fast. That's probably what you're talking
Yeah.
about, where it just cured up so much quicker. But once I took a temperature of the room, I realized it wasn't the epoxy; it was me. I was in a, you know, above 70, 2 degrees, and if you're working with any kind of fast hardener and epoxy and anything, if you're not at 68 degrees doing that, you're asking for trouble.
Right. So now, Kevin has a question, and Kevin, I'll take the first shot, and then we'll give it to Shane on this one. You said I'm trying to do a Christmas ornament that says Merry Christmas, but the lettering is less than optimal. When you say less than optimal, I'm assuming you mean the vectors aren't very big, so therefore it won't go very deep. And you say, should I you got optimal try with 60, 90, and 30. I wouldn't go with 30 or any of those. Uh, I would go with 15 degrees if I was using a V bit. And I know that's what Shane would advise. But your question is, have you ever used a tapered ball nose for that? My answer is yes. I almost exclusively use a 12.4 degree tapered ball nose that I've entered into my database as a V-bit. So I fool the Vectric software, and the tip is small enough that it's almost as sharp as um, a V-bit, dang near. It'll poke you the same way, and but it's not as brittle, and it's got even a sharper angle than the 15 degree. So, question: do I ever use that? The answer is yes. I substitute that bit almost exclusively these days for my 15 degree V bit. Shane is still using the 15 degree V bit and hasn't made that switch over. And so I'll let him answer his thoughts about using a tapered ball nose and the fact that he doesn't use it and has decided not to try that shift over.
Yeah, I just don't know how to get that into my I'm afraid my software will not know what that is. So, and I'm just not good at adding new stuff. I have those bits, but and like you said, you've told me they work pretty good, like showing sharp edge. So there's nothing wrong with that. And I would think that a tapered ball nose would stay, last longer than the one I use for sure. Uh, I would think.
The Yeah, when I was over Shane's house a few weeks ago borrowing a CNC and breaking it, I actually I actually saw that he had that tapered ball nose. We just didn't get a chance because we were too busy repairing the CNC or fixing or doing my slab. Thank you, Shane. And so I know he's got it. We've talked about possibly him trying it out just to see what he thinks, but he hasn't gone there yet. Hopefully that answered your question, Kevin. All right, let's go down here. Jim Matthews is saying hi to everybody. Crafty Jans, Michael Bernasconi. All right, so here's Ellen. Ellen goes by Madra3212. And Shane, she asked, how long can unmixed epoxy be stored for and still be usable? In other words, you just have it in the container and you haven't decided to use it. How long can you have it sit in your shop?
A couple years. Now, I don't know if this is like medicine where the doctors don't want you to, keep your medicine because they need to keep selling more medicine. So they tell you it has an expiration date. And I just don't know. I'm sure there's some point where epoxy might stop working. I've never experienced it. Years ago, I was sent so much epoxy from so many different companies. It was insane. I still have some of it. And there's a lot of times where if I need to just make a, 28-inch long by, you know, 18-inch tall by 2-inch thick epoxy uh, plate, basically like a epoxy board, 100% epoxy. I'll go in there and just grab that stuff and just dump it in there and use that. I've never had epoxy not work for me, and I'm telling you this. There's been stuff in there for a couple years at a time that hasn't been used.
Yeah,
But that
that's
doesn't mean that it doesn't go bad. I just haven't experienced it going
you just
bad.
yeah, you just can't say how long because you haven't experienced. I've had the same thing. I haven't experienced it yet. I know there is supposed to be a shelf life, but I think a lot of it also has to deal with how you store it. So, if you're like in Mississippi or Texas or Alabama or the Phoenix, Arizona, where it gets really hot, and you're not storing it in a place where you stay less than 110 degrees. I'm using some exaggeration here, but not much. If you store it, if you don't store it like in a reasonable temperature area, I think that might have an impact on its degradation faster than anything else, even though it's unused.
I see Brooks is talking about it's almost already in the vector tool database, that bit, which it totally could be. I have not looked in there in so long. I use guys, I'm telling you, 99.9% of the time now it is a 15-degree V bit and a 1/8 inch clearing bit or a 1/4 inch clearing bit. Those are about the only three bits that have been on my machine outside of some kind of ball nose for a juice groove or a flattening bit for something. But I don't even use any of the 30 or 60 or 90-degree bits anymore at all.
Yeah, Shane, what he was actually saying is Rob has a great video on how to enter that tapered ball nose into the tool base. So I put out I put out a live video, and I wouldn't call it a great video at all. It was choppy and everything else because it was like a year and a half ago. And it's alive, and I'm going to redo that video just because there's more and more interest in it these days. So I am going to do a redo that video. But if you're looking immediately, there is a live, and I think it's like live 01 or 02. It was like when I first started doing lives. It was like my first or third live, and so you have to go back in my lives and search for tapered ball nose, and it walks through the process, but I could have done a better job. And I'm going to remake that video because I have so much interest in it lately. Let's see. Very good, Rich. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you sharing your knowledge. Question. We have been getting micro bubbles in the epoxy. So Carrie says, we've been getting micro bubbles in the epoxy and can't seem to get them out. They don't come to the top of the epoxy. What do you think is causing these bubbles? Room temperature is 78 degrees.
Who's asking that?
Harry Casella.
Hey, Harry. So, Harry,
Carrie.
put in the comments what your. Sorry.
Hey.
Put in the comments what your, like, what is the project? Is it a hardwood? Is it going onto pine? Is it pre-coated ahead of time and sealed, or is it just? Are you dumping it into like a void that you've just cleared without sealing? Because then I can give you a real answer for what you're looking for. I know exactly what you're saying. Temperature has a lot to do with that, but me just telling you that and then expecting it to work won't work if you're not sealing your projects, depending on the type of wood you're using too. So if you can tell me the species, that'd be good.
Shane, like one of the things I think you'd be interested in, and this is where we get into the big old debate in the haters at times, is the Carrie, are you laying a full clear coat of epoxy down and then carving into that like Shane recommends?
Or at least sealing, at least doing a brush coat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll bet you he's at least doing a brush coat. Almost everybody does that these days, Shane. But your main reason for preaching the full coat is because you want to make moss rich by selling more epoxy.
No, that's not why. No,
I know that. I'm just trying to get you to discuss why you went in that direction. I want people to hear what you say.
Okay, so why I do that is because. Here we go.
He said he uses he uses hardwood and a full clear coat.
Yeah, and then one more thing, Carrie, are you mixing with like a popsicle stick, or are you using a drill with a mixer on the end? I know these sound like dumb questions, but they're good questions. Because when you mix with a drill, you're going to be dealing with bubbles a lot more than you will if you mix by hand. So now that I can see she's using a hardwood, well, hardwood oak versus walnut, I mean, those are oak might as well be a softwood because of the open grain. But anyhow,
Carrie says,
she is using a,
Carrie
okay,
says he
perfect, a
used the
popsicle stick.
popsicle
Okay,
stick.
so we're the same. We're exactly the same. So if you're doing a pre-coat and you feel like the pre-coat's taking and you're not losing any epoxy past that,
He said he's pouring a full clear coat like you recommend.
okay, so he's filling it. Okay, great. So here's what I do is if I'm going to run my project, let's just say all my cuts and pours are going to be planned to be a 0.15 deep or a 0.125 deep. We'll just go say 0.15 for this example, but just know it scales up and down no matter how deep you want to go. So if I'm planning on running everything 0.15 deep, what I do is I take the full shadow of the whole project plus 200ths and I cut all that out. And now make sure not to accidentally cut out places that you want to leave permanent wood. Like if you look at the Viking, you'll see like between his arm right here, there's wood that's there. So when I did the initial cutout, all that stuff is there. When I poured the clear, you can see even between the barbecue legs, if you go down a little bit more, that's wood right to the, yeah, right there. So basically, and next to it as well. So all the areas you see epoxy were all cut out ahead of time. And I cut those down 0.175 deep because on this project, I was going to run everything 0.15 from top of board deep over and over and over again until I was done. So the first thing I did was cut out the full silhouette of the project plus 200ths, and I cut it deeper, 0.175 deep, and I just filled that with clear and let it just kind of do whatever it's going to do, just kind of set and keep heating it and get the bubbles out and let it set. And then I come back in for the rest of the project because I did not want to deal with bubbles at all, not even any bubbles at all, no chance of bubbles. The rest of my project, I'm only doing 0.15 deep. And since even the edges were 200ths bigger, no matter where I'm cutting inside that silhouette, there's going to be an epoxy bottom and epoxy side. So there is no more bubble issues other than just from stirring. And that's easily managed with just heat. Now, so going back to Carrie's other thing, it sounds like since you're doing all the stuff like this, it sounds like it is the temperature in your garage that is giving you those troubles.
Well, we didn't ask him that question, Shane, that you brought up. How long is he hitting it with heat and popping the bubbles? Is he just doing it like the first 10 minutes, or is he coming back? What you used to recommend to me was anywhere from every 15 minutes to 30 minutes, you have to come back and check and see if the bubbles are still forming.
Yeah, for about an hour, hour and a half, depending which epoxy you're using. I mean, sometimes 3 hours, and sometimes 20 hours later, you're still getting bubbles out if you're using like a deep pour. So really depends on the epoxy. But if we're talking Moss medium with with the LV, that's only about 45, 50 minutes, and then you should be done with your bubbles there. With
Yeah.
slow, it's about an hour and 10, and with fast, I wouldn't even leave the project. It's especially in 78 degrees. You really have no hope. I don't think with a 78-degree temperature and a fast hardener, it would be really tough.
It'd be flashing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna have major bubble issues there.
Yeah, Kerry says he's checking every 15 minutes for 2 hours. But if you are using
Kerry sounds like my twin. He's doing everything I do. So
yeah.
I think it is that temperature there, Kerry, is the issue. I mean, a lot of times we can't do anything about that. I know there's times where, like with the Viking board, that was the first project I've ever done, where I didn't move it from my machine into the house and back and forth every day. But it's because the thing was like 9,000 pounds. I just did not want to keep moving that thing around. So I just left it there, which I also found out it was really, really nice. That was just so great not having to move things back and forth and just pouring out at the machine. That worked out really great.
But that would be your problem, Shane. The difference between you and me in the where our workshop is set up is, if you guys haven't been over Shane's house, which I think I'm the only one that has, but if you've watched his videos, Shane does everything in a 1-car, 1.5 car. I don't know how big his garage is.
2 cars.
2-car garage. It looks like a 1-car with the CNC taking up so much. He does everything in his 2-car garage, which has not got any climate control in Southern California, where it gets hot. it gets up to 100 and some degrees here at times. And it gets hotter out where I am, but I put a mini split air conditioner, so I climate control mine somewhere around 70 to 75 degrees at the highest. So it's normally around 72 degrees in my shop,
Nice.
where Kerry couldn't do that. I mean, Shane couldn't do that, and so he'd have a hard time leaving his thing on the machine all the time.
Yeah, I
And
don't think
if it was summer.
Yeah, this was nice, but it just worked out where temperatures were down and I was doing most of my pours in the evening, so it was nice and cool. So it worked out good. I would never have attempted that during the summer. It would have just been a gong show. Carrie, one last question. So it sounds like you're pouring the full thick epoxy, like a flood coat, basically, into those voids and then cutting into that. Did you leave a space between your clear coat bottom and your bottom that you were cutting in, or not?
So like, did he pour it like 0.15 and then cut to 0.125 or something? You're saying?
Right, because if not, a lot of times, the board throughout a project is not this Viking board, because that thing didn't move a lick. It was 2 inches thick and 42 by 32 or something. It did never tried to warp, but 9 out of 10 of my projects all have a little bit of movement during the whole process of, dumping in that stuff, and there's a little bit of wobble, and I find I'm shimming while I'm doing the rest of the project, and then I'm praying that, like, oh, please let this not lose all the detail when I go to flatten this thing, that kind of stuff. And one thing I notice is sometimes you put your project back in there and you buckle it in and you go and you cut, and I see bare wood again. I'm like, oh man, that means, okay, great. This has like warped up a little bit because I've cut right through my protection zone of epoxy and I'm back into bare wood. So now you've got to go brush coat that and then pour, and it's just a big pain. But I'm just wondering if Carrie noticed that there was still an epoxy bottom the whole time, or oh yeah, he's good. So it's at 125 and a 1. So yeah, that sounds like a heat thing then. I mean, I can't really think of anything else that could have been.
Sounds like he's doing everything right.
Yeah, I think Carrie said that. Hold on, let me just go back. Here we go. I saw her. He said like about a LV or something like that. Let's see.
What are you looking for, bud?
I was just trying to see.
I got a bigger screen.
What Carrie said for what type of epoxy?
I don't think he said what kind of epoxy.
Carrie, put that in there just to let me know if you're using like a 1-to-1 or what. Probably not a 1-to-1 though, because a 1-to-1 you have an easier time with bubbles. So, and then if it is a 1-to-1 and he's still getting bubbles, it's definitely the heat.
Yeah. So going back to the other one here, Jim, you've talked with Jim before. He's talking about the old question about how long will the epoxy last. And you see, Jim says in Florida, where it gets really hot, after a year, his moss turns yellowish and is hard for mixing for lighter colors.
Oh, okay.
Still cures fine, but it doesn't look right.
Okay, so that would tell me, that's good, because I have some stuff that gets quite old too. I'll save the old stuff for the dark colors and the newer stuff for the light colors then. Carrie, I don't use Total Boat, so just tell me, is that a 2-to-1 or a 1-to-1, the tabletop one? I've never used that tabletop from Total Boat. Probably a 2-to-1, right?
Most likely, most of the tabletops I've had are 2-to-1. 1-to-1, Carrie says.
Okay, so if you're using a 1-to-1, yeah, 2 hours of heating is great. Going back and forth for 1.5 hours, 2 hours. You've done everything correct. I would say that it's the 78 degrees that's killing you there.
All right. Any other questions for Shane while we've got him here? I think he said he might have to leave here at 5:15. It's 5:13. So I wanted to let you guys get a quick question in if you have it before he has to take off. Here is one more of his projects when we're talking about skin tone that I thought was pretty cool. He loves his Traegers, or Traeger loves him.
Yeah, they love me. Well, I love Traeger too. They sent me 2 different free grills, so that was very nice of them.
I would love to play the music, but I get a copyright strike every time I play one of these videos. And now that I'm monetized, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? I've got one here. Kevin says, "Thank you, Shane. Be safe. Miss you on the YouTube."
Oh, I miss being there.
He says, here's one from Brooks, says, pressure pot out of the question. So I think he's asking Carrie, is there any chance you could put it in a pressure pot before you pour it?
That will definitely help. It's
Yeah,
not necessary, but it'll definitely help.
Yep. Well, it might be necessary if he's working in that heat or something, because then he'll minimize any bubbles that did get stirred into it. Don't know.
Yeah.
Any other questions from anybody? Is that somebody telling you got to go, or what is that, Shane?
Yeah, they're just
telling you your time's up.
There's always a few minute cushion in case anyone has any other questions.
All right. Any other questions? And Kerry says he does live in Central Florida where it gets hot.
Ooh, hot and humid.
Yep. And I bet he doesn't have his garage air conditioned like mine. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know anyone else that does do that. That's great that you have that.
Well, there's a few people out there. Thank you. Ellen says, thank you, Shane, and have a great week.
Hi, Ellen.
And I think, Ellen, I think you're going to the user group meeting, right? So I'll get a chance to see you there. I'm going to take off on Saturday. And I'm going to take a long drive there and then a long drive back. I'll be gone anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks, depending on where I want to go. And Tim Keller says, thank you, Shane. Carrie says, thank you. And Ellen did ask a question. Does humidity play a factor?
You know, I'll research that for you. And the next time I'm on, I'll give you an answer for that. I don't want to just blow smoke up your ass rear end on that kind of thing. So let me find out. Just because I keep that epoxy room of mine, air conditioned, and humidifier, all that kind of stuff to keep humidity out of there. I just really don't know. So, but I will find out and let you guys know.
All right. Any other questions for Shane before he takes off? I've still got about 10 minutes that I can talk or answer questions if you want. It said, I see Ellen says we're leaving Wednesday for almost 2 weeks. Does that include going to the user group meeting, Ellen? So if you are going to the user group meeting, oh, good. So if you're going to the user group meeting and I don't recognize you, because I would say because I'm old and it's hard for me to remember people and all that other stuff. But most of Mark's group, or a lot of Mark's group, is old just like me. So I just fit in. But don't hesitate to walk up to me and say hi if you recognize me and I don't recognize you. I would love to meet each of you in person. And I'd really like to do that. So if you are there and see me, make sure you say hello. And let's spend a few minutes getting to know each other. That's one of the things I really like about these conferences. I really enjoyed that on my last one I went to. I went to the Lightburn experience. I loved it there too. Met a bunch of laser people. I'm all set up for that one too. So I've got this one I'm headed to, and then I've got the Lightburn experience. One of the things I plan on doing is I've reached out a couple other makers, woodworkers, content creators, whatever you want to call them, that I've met over the years. And on my road trip, I'm going to stop by and see them. So the plan is to go see Jake Thompson for sure. White Oaks Woodwork, I think his name is, Caleb. He does the wood inlays, the big wood inlays into cutting boards. So there's a lot of people in the Texas area. So I plan on stopping and seeing a few of them. If I get a chance, I'd actually like to go to April Wilkerson's The Shed, the wood shed, and see what that is. I think she's been doing a good job building her reputation and her channel and all that over the years. So got a lot of respect for anybody that's got that kind of ambition, especially at that age. I'd like to go see that. I mean, heck, I went to Magnolia Farms with my wife a few years back so I could see Chip Gaines and those guys. I might as well go see the woodshed with April. So I plan on making a big trip out of it. I don't know whether I will do any YouTube videos or anything else. It depends on how tired I am at nights, but there's a good chance I won't do a thing for the next 2 to 5 weeks. So it's not that anything's wrong, folks. If you don't hear anything from me or very much, it's because I'm busy having fun driving around the country, or at least through Texas. I guess Texas is supposed to be a country of its own, right? Any other questions? I don't think there's enough time to get into the AI discussion, but I will just say, if you're, and I know that a lot of you are in Mark's group and his Facebook group and talk a lot about it. If you are not using AI to do things like generate ideas, I use it on an everyday basis, and has nothing to do with the woodwork part of it. I use it on an everyday basis to ask things like, hey, on my DJI Mic 2, how can I record on that without going through a camera? So Dan says, I'll hate Texas. No, I won't hate Texas. I've been there a couple of times, Dan. It depends on how hot it is. But what's the old saying? I spent a month in Texas one day. It is a big, big state. It will take me a while to get through that. But my in-laws used to live in Texas for a while. They lived in Wichita, Texas, Wichita Falls. And so I used to go visit them there, my wife's parents. So anyway, if you're not using AI, not just for maker stuff, but for everyday stuff, then you might want to go explore it more. And that was part of what I was going to talk about in my AI discussion, along with some of the prompt stuff I do. And I was also going to talk about, I was going to show some of the things that I've done. I probably have time if you want to see. Let's see here. I have some time to where I can show, let me show you a couple pictures of things, of the types of things I've been using AI for. And so let me take and see if I can control this well enough. Just as we end, I want to share with you some of the, see if I can get it over on the right screen. Some of the types of, okay, it looks like it's going to work here. Let me share the screen. Okay, it wants to share it over there, so I'll share it over there. All right, I think you can see it, right? So blow this up, see what happens. So here's one that some of you have seen before where, I got this from AI and then I made this rope border around it. Here's some art. Some of you saw that in Mark's group. Here's one's a giraffe and a tree branch kind of thing. All of these were generated by AI and then turned into one of these things. These are all from Aspire. Here's an early one I did for my granddaughter. This is one that Chris Peltier did. Here's one that I did early on, and I would like to push this nose out in the future now that I learned how to do that. But my point with this is these are all examples of what you can do with it, and I was going to walk through the process of how you can do that. The other example of where I use it in the woodworking is, for some reason this is not blowing up. Let's try this in a different way. Try it one more time. There we go. So there was a sailboat that I did. And these are examples of how I've been using it in the world of laser engraving. And that's why I'm so excited about what I see with what you are all doing, which you are all doing in the group, is the ability to go to the next step, which is where you are all taking, and I don't have any of those pictures handy or I'd be showing those, going to the next step and actually taking and making those pictures look like 3D graphics. And that's the next spot I want to go to. And Dan, you asked, did I design these boxes? No, Chris Pelletier, he designed the boxes and they're on his website. I'll put his website in the links. He designs those boxes and gets a lot of 3D. He's got tons of models that he's taken AI and turned them in, and he sells his models. I think they're either $5 or $10 each. And I think he usually has a box with it. I think the file includes how to make the box. I can't say that for sure, but Chris does an excellent job of that. And he's in the Facebook groups out there, and he's a prolific sharer of his model. And he was a guest last month or 2 months ago when he walked through his process, and which was the same process at the time that Michael Bernasconi was using, but Mike's developed his process further. And in me working with Mike, I've migrated my process also. And so that was what I was going to share with you tonight. If you hadn't been in discussions with Michael on how he makes his 3D stuff these days. He's further advanced than I am, Michael is, but I just want to share the knowledge that I do have so you guys can build on top of it. You know, my motto is learn, share, and inspire. And so I may not know everything about a topic, but I will share what I do know so that the next person can build on it and start using it. But unfortunately, there is not enough time in the live stream tonight to do that. And if I get a chance in the next couple of weeks to actually put a video together on it, I will. If not, like I said, there's no guarantees, because my primary goal is getting to Austin safely and to visit a bunch of cool people along the way. Any last minute questions? We've reached our time. As I say, I like to stick to an hour, give or take 15 minutes, and I don't like to hold people over because it'd be real easy to get off on a tangent and start talking about all kinds of other things. So any other questions or thoughts or information you need before we exit this live stream? I hope you found the information useful and viable. And it's always good to have Shane available and to tap into his knowledge. If you follow him on Instagram, you can see what a good job he does. With that, have a great night, have a great week, and safe travels. And for those of you that I'll see in Austin, looking forward to it. Take care. Oh, by the way, I'll exit with a song that was written in, and this is what Shane probably was hearing. So I don't know if it'll come out on your channel or not, but a song that was actually written by AI.
Epoxy flows bright and true. Red, white, blue shine through. CNC carving stars anew. Crafted with a love so deep. Rob's hands covered pride. American dreams collide. In this trade